Hello, everyone. I'm Chris, and welcome back to Chris Reviews. I am here to talk about Jurassic World Dominion, which is the sixth installment in the Jurassic Park / Jurassic World franchise, directed once again by Colin Trevorrow and starring Chris Pratt, Bryce Dallas Howard, Laura Dern, Jeff Goldblum, and Sam Neill. The whole gang's here for this one, the Jurassic World cast and, of course, the Jurassic Park cast as well. This is like freshly out this weekend. I got back from seeing this probably about an hour and a half ago, and already it's slipping from my mind. So I actually do have a written plan for this one, unlike pretty much every other live stream I think I've done on this thing. Because there's a lot of stuff that I want to talk about, a lot of stuff that I need to talk about, and probably rant about as well. And that's probably like a good teaser to where I'm kind of sitting with this film at the moment. Of course, as we're getting into, more into the summer movie season, we're going to have a lot more of these films coming out. Not Jurassic World films, just, big films, big blockbuster films in general that I'm probably going to have to drag myself to see. So, hey, if you like this review, hopefully you do, if you're tuning in and watching this thing, or if you've seen any other stuff, if you're only discovering me right now, please do consider hitting that subscribe button for more movie reviews, discussions, live streams. I go live every Tuesday for James Bond reviews, but as I mentioned, I kind of jump on whenever there's anything that I want to talk about. I am going to be starting to watch Stranger Things Season 4 Part 1 tonight. I haven't watched any of Season 4 yet, so as soon as I've got that watched, there will be a review on Stranger Things Season 4 as well, as and when I get to it. There's a lot of stuff out at the moment, guys. There's only so many hours in the day. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter as well. You can find me at Hobbit Fan Editor. There, I just post the times that I'm going live with all of my videos and everything like that, and some bits and pieces along the way, like whether I'm watching something or I'm, interacting with you guys, checking out what you guys are watching as well. So, with all that being said, let's get into Jurassic World Dominion if we have to. It's just a franchise that refuses to go extinct. Before I dive into my thoughts on this film in particular, I think it's important, to sort of like go back and talk about my thoughts in general on the Jurassic Park franchise. The first one is just outstanding, isn't it? It's just a solid blockbuster film. Spielberg perfectly capturing that sense of danger, thrills to it, but also that whimsy to it, that wonder to it, and not to mention, how revolutionary it was for, CGI and everything like that. They were pioneers with that film. They were creating new stuff on the go. They didn't know what they were doing, they were kind of making it up as they went along, and the results, almost 30 years after the fact. And I always remember how old Jurassic Park is because it came out exactly the same year of my birth. So I'm conscious of my own mortality, I guess. But almost 3 decades old, and it still holds up as, a fantastically engaging film, fun film, blockbuster film, and the effects still hold up. The textures might not be as up to snuff as they are now with things. Obviously, it was the sort of the dawn of CGI in many ways, but with a blend of practical and, real sets, real locations and everything, it holds up so well. And it's all about how you blend things like that. That T-Rex scene in the rain, still one of the best scenes in movie history as far as I'm concerned. And then we get to the sequels. I remember distinctly actually going to see Jurassic what was it called? The Lost World Jurassic Park. There we go. I went to the cinema to see that film, and even as a kid, and I'd already seen Jurassic Park before that point. I think I'd seen Jurassic Park on like TV or something. I think I'd like recorded it off the TV on VHS cassette. I don't think I ever had it on video. I was a kid, of course. I was massively into dinosaurs. I was very lucky. I was bought, like dinosaur toys and books and everything, and I'd read them cover to cover and, try and learn all the names and memorize the names and all the dinosaurs. I used to draw them as well. Most kids are into dinosaurs, aren't they? Let's be honest. And they're cool, So with a new Jurassic Park film coming out, I was already kind of aware of the first film at that point. And even as a kid, I remember just being really restless throughout the second film. Maybe that was my, attention span, but I remember just being really shifty and moving from seat to seat. I was one of those annoying kids, unfortunately. But, if it was a good film, I did used to sit there and watch it. So clearly, already back then, I kind of subconsciously knew maybe that Jurassic Park... what was it called? I keep forgetting the name. The Lost World Jurassic Park. It's switched, isn't it? I realized it wasn't a good film. There were some good bits though that did stand out to me, and I like the bit where it's probably the biggest action set piece of the film, actually, in the second Jurassic Park film, where you've got the trailer kind of dangling off the cliff, and she's on the glass and the glass is cracking. Like, that's some good stuff. That's some good tension right there, and that's Spielberg coming through, at least in that scene. Went to the cinema to see Jurassic Park 3 when that came out. I remember that being a whole big thing. And actually, I'm one of the defenders of Jurassic Park 3. I will concede that maybe overall it's probably not a good film. But I have a lot of fun with it. It's like a 90-minute B-movie dinosaur film. And Sam Neill is obviously the main protagonist in it again. Spinosaurus was cool. And that has some really good set pieces as well, actually. The whole pterodactyl stuff was really, really well built up as well. I'll never forget that, where they're walking across sort of like the metal walkway, like the metal cage. And Sam Neill's like, it's a bird cage, and then like there's the droppings and everything, and it's like building up, and what's it going to be, and then you see it emerge from the smoke. I thought that was really cool. So yeah, there's quite a lot of moments in Jurassic Park 3 actually that I really appreciate. I like the Velociraptor chase as well in the facility. I think that works really well. And then we get to the Jurassic World films, and I haven't liked any of them. Jurassic World was kind of one of those films like The Force Awakens in many ways, how it was, a soft reboot, and it was basically beat for beat exactly the same as the first film. And I mean, the whole fact of like a park being open to the public was quite a fun idea. And I liked that concept that, it's not like a park that's removed from everything. Like, people can and do go to this park, it's just like, I thought that was quite a good satire, maybe, people just the kind of disposable interest of people like, oh, cool, you look, dinosaurs. But the film itself, like when everything goes awry, it's basically just exactly the same movie again. I didn't particularly enjoy the writing of the characters. I don't think Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard had much chemistry together as a couple on screen. And then, you kind of repeat things where in the original, the kids are trapped in the car and screaming. In this one, they're kind of trapped in the glass sphere things that transport them across the park. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom was just... From what I can remember of that film, it was probably the low point of the franchise, I think, Jurassic Park. I keep saying Jurassic Park. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. I am going to get onto the new one in a minute, folks, I promise. This is the intro, but I guess I like the sound of my own voice right now. But no, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom was just absolutely terrible in every single way. Again, the characters into the second film, I didn't care about them. They didn't really grow for me as characters. They didn't... I don't think the writing was there for them that made them particularly likable or engaging in any way. And even the dinosaur side of things in the second film was just kind of bad. Like, I've never been a big fan of the genetically modified, sort of like mutated dinosaurs, the ones that aren't real dinosaurs, like Indominus Rex. It's like they kind of ran out of real big predators to use, and it was like, now we've got to create our own ones. The same for the second one. Like, there's a bit where I think it's the guy who plays Buffalo Bill, isn't it, from Silence of the Lambs? I forget the actor's name. And he thinks he's beaten the Endoraptor, was it called, or something like that? And he's got it on the ground, and the Endoraptor kind of like smirks and like winks at the audience. Watch it. It's so dumb. I'm not sure if it winks actually, but I know that it has like an evil smile. And there was the whole plot line about the little girl who was a clone human, which I will get onto once we get onto Jurassic World Dominion, because that storyline, that gem of a storyline, continues into this one. And that's kind of brings us very neatly onto this one. So, when all the trailers came out for this thing, again, going back to sort of like the right, actually kind of like Rise of Skywalker with this one, which coincidentally Colin Trevorrow was meant to direct. So it's almost like poetry. It rhymes. The trailer for Jurassic World Dominion was very much like Rise of Skywalker and marketed in almost exactly the same way, to be honest. The music within the trailer was very evocative of Rise of Skywalker and how it was billing this as not just an end to this trilogy, but an end to the saga, an end to the franchise, the epic conclusion. I think they even copy that verbatim from the Rise of Skywalker, the epic conclusion to sort of like the Jurassic Park saga. Not to mention that, but it's, you know, a complete nostalgia trip as well. It's, if this is going to be the last one, yeah, even on the theatrical poster, the epic conclusion of the Jurassic era. That's what it's got right there. I don't think for a second this will be the last one in the franchise. They'll definitely bring it back. But yeah, you know, for nostalgia, you're bringing back the old cast members as well. You've got Sam Neill, Laura Dern, and Jeff Goldblum returning. So that's to try and bring in the old crowd, you know, for nostalgia and everything like that, and tie it all together in a neat little bow. And I mean, is this the epic conclusion to the Jurassic era? No, it isn't. And it is this film worse than Rise? No, I don't think this film's as worse as Rise of Skywalker, but it's pretty fucking bad. It's pretty goddamn bad. Before I just go into like and tear this film a new one, I'm just going to go over the plot. This is according to IMDb for anyone who hasn't seen the film. I'm going to try and keep spoilers to a minimum, and then I'll let you know when I'm getting onto spoilers. So the plot: 4 years after the destruction of Isla Nublar, dinosaurs now live and hunt alongside humans all over the world. Sorry, I just lost my place. This fragile balance will reshape the future and determine once and for all whether human beings are to remain the apex predators on a planet they now share with history's most fearsome creatures in a new era. That's your plot. I mean, if you saw Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, you kind of know the conceit of this new one is that the dinosaurs have escaped. They're living among us in the wild in perfect, kind of, actually, no, not perfect harmony with everything around it, because, you know, dinosaurs are kind of taking over the world. When Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom ended like that, I thought, sure, why not? Like, what else can you do with the Jurassic Park franchise? It's kind of a stale franchise at this point. It's like, what can you do that hasn't been done before? And I guess you could kind of argue in a way, dinosaurs, you know, sort of living among us, running amok through the streets and everything, that has kind of been done, you know, at least during the ending of The Lost World. The second Jurassic Park film, you know, ends with the whole, is it San Fran? I can't remember where when the T-Rex gets out and it's like stomping through the streets and it's kind of like a whole King Kong type thing. So that idea has been done in the franchise, but to this scale where basically dinosaurs as a species are just living among us, I was like, okay, it feels like you're kind of going for broke at this point. Like you're just throwing everything against the wall, but it's like, well, where else can you go with the franchise? I was like, at least that could be fun in a completely sort of over the top, ridiculous way. Like, look how far the franchise has come, has descended since that first film. But I was like, you know what? I'd be kind of interested to see that and what you could do with a plot for that. Like, have you got to try and round them up? Have you got to try and kill them? Like, what's happened? How has the status quo shifted now we've kind of reintroduced dinosaurs back into the world? And I really don't feel like the film capitalized on that. You know, that was sort of like the big end point of Fallen Kingdom going into Dominion. And I know in the lead up and things like that, I think there was like, was there like a 5 to 15 minute video that was released or something like that, where it was kind of like the viral marketing kind of thing for Jurassic World. And it was showing all the dinosaurs in like different places around the world and everything like that, and what's been happening to kind of bridge that gap. But that's the kind of stuff I would have liked to have seen in the actual film, and that occupies such a small part of this film. The film opens and kind of indeed I might be getting into kind of spoiler territory now. Spoiler free, I hated this film. Go and see Top Gun Maverick instead. You know, just keep going to see Top Gun Maverick because that's actually a good summer blockbuster and a well-made action film. The film opens up and indeed closes with this really, really awkward exposition. It's just blatant exposition just thrown on. It's like this like voiceover that's just going like, oh, this new company called what was it? InGen? Is it InGen? Genesis? It actually reminded me of Terminator Genesis from the name. Biosyn. No, Biosyn. It's like, oh, Biosyn have created something or other and they're kind of taking over, and dinosaurs are living among us, and on the news and everything like that. It's like, we can get this from just dialogue. You don't it's honestly like it opens with like a 5-minute exposition scene. It's just relentless, and then that finishes and we get the Jurassic World logo that comes into the screen, and then the film kind of begins where it should have began, sorry, with Bryce Dallas Howard's character going to sort of like these illegal dinosaur breeding farms and stuff and trying to rescue the dinosaurs from there and shut these places down. Like, I feel that should have been the opening scene rather than this really awkward exposition. It kind of recaps the stuff that we've already seen in Jurassic World and kind of bridges the gap between what's been going on. But we know what's been going on. Dinosaurs are in our world causing chaos, like I feel like you could get all of that from the dialogue, and it was just really awkward, and just like an information dump at the beginning of the film. And you think back to like the other Jurassic Park and Jurassic World films, and none of them start like that. All of them start with some kind of inciting incident that's, whether it's tension or whatnot. The first one opens with them, that first film when it's delaying the reveal of the dinosaurs. It's so good. And I get now that, you're 6 films in, you probably don't want to keep building up to the reveal of the dinosaurs, because we know what they look like. They're all over the trailers. It's not as revolutionary now as it was back then. CGI in films had barely been done before, and certainly not to the scale of Jurassic Park in, recreating dinosaurs, realistic looking dinosaurs, well, certainly at the time. So there was that sense of wonder and that sense of build up and payoff to it. Whereas now it's just kind of, let's just get to the good stuff. And it kind of, it opens with the mosasaur just coming out and grabbing like this fishing boat, but there's no kind of build to it or anything like that. But even thinking back to like the other Jurassic World films, all of them started off with some kind of, tension building scene in some way involving the dinosaurs. Like the first one, in the first film, they're transporting the Velociraptor and we barely see it. So, shoot her, and the guy gets eaten. Second film is the little girl, isn't it? With the I'm not good with the names of the dinosaurs. I know the dinosaurs begin with C. Like the little tiny little ankle biter ones, and then she gets eaten. 3 opens with the whole parachuting scene, doesn't it? Where and the boat crashes and the kid on the parachute and everything like that. I can't remember how Jurassic World opens up, in all honesty, so I don't know if that opens with a dinosaur scene. I can't remember. And then I know Fallen Kingdom opens with the is it like the T-Rex or something? I don't know. There's a dinosaur anyway that opens up at the beginning, I think, of Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. And this one is just kind of like awkward information. I'm kind of hung up on that fact, so let's move on from that, because there's a lot of other things to talk about. Before I just kind of tear this film a new one, if I've got the energy in me, I'm very tired, guys. Positives that I did like about this film, they are few, but there's a couple. There seemed to be a bigger shift in this one, especially in the close-ups and some of the background dinosaurs, to more practical effects and puppets and animatronics and things like that. And honestly, with Jurassic Park, well, all films, but certainly Jurassic Park, it makes such a difference. If you've got a dinosaur in the foreground really close to the camera, have it be an animatronic. And then, when you pull back and you're doing like your big scale dinosaur action scenes, have it be CGI. It's all about that balance. And granted, there are some scenes in this that do feel really lazy, where they still do have CGI dinosaurs, right up close to the camera. But certainly with this one, and especially compared to Jurassic World and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, there was loads more puppets and animatronics and actors actually interacting with the puppets this time as well. And it must make a difference for the actors as well. I know actors are masters of their craft, and even if there isn't anything there, usually they can react to it pretty well. Apart from one actress in this film, during one particular scene, which I'll talk about, which actually made me laugh out loud in the cinema at how poor the acting was and the reaction was in that particular scene, but we'll get to that. So yeah, I like the fact that there was more practical effects in this one. I really did. There's a scene where they kind of go to this underground sort of like dinosaur fighting, like black market kind of place. and they're kind of fighting dinosaurs, and there's like dinosaurs in muzzles and being kept as pets and being eaten for food and all of that stuff. I was like, okay, that's kind of different. You know, we haven't. There was an auction in the previous film, but in terms of like a black market kind of setup where you've got all of these different like puppets and dinosaurs, I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting. Maybe it's different at least. So I liked that. I liked the blend a lot more. Also sort of like the big bad dinosaur in this one, which actually doesn't get much screen time at all, really. Sort of like the big dinosaur towards the end of the film is actually a real dinosaur. So they used like an actual dinosaur in that one, and it's not some kind of like genetically modified one. It's like a proper dinosaur, which I appreciated. There's another big sort of like slanging match with the T-Rex, who's I guess is like kind of the mascot for the franchise now, isn't he, in many ways? I mean, certainly on the logo. And they kind of do that. It's sort of a repeat of the end of Jurassic World, where there was like this team up with the two predators against the big villainous dinosaur, and they kind of do the same again in this one. Let me just get the name. I wish I knew dinosaur names. You've got the Therizinosaur and the T-Rex teaming up against the Gigantosaurus or Gigantosaurus, however you am I saying that right? Giganotosaurus, whatever. The big evil dinosaur. There's two dinosaurs teaming up against it, one of which is the T-Rex. So they kind of repeat that again, you know, and it's fine. Actually, you know, seeing the big dinosaur slanging match at the end of the film is like, yeah, it's kind of why I'm here. So that was kind of fun, but it was a little too late at that point. It's literally like within the final 5-10 minutes of the film. And kind of my last positive, really, and it's kind of punctuated with a bit of a criticism, was just seeing the old cast come back. As I've mentioned, Laura Dern, Sam Neill, and Jeff Goldblum. It was a real joy to see those characters again. And all of them are kind of wearing exactly the same clothes as they were 30 years ago, because, you know, that's how it works. You've got Jeff Goldblum's character, who's kind of like a lecturer at this new facility. I don't know whether he's a live-in lecturer or whether he's like a touring lecturer. And he's still in the black shirt and the leather jacket and the shades, and it's like, would he really be wearing that like 30 years on? I mean, how many other guys do you know that always wear a leather jacket? Like, seriously. And yeah, and Laura Dern's like wearing exactly the same clothes. Sam Neill's wearing like the checkered t-shirt and the hat and the like the chino pants and everything like that. So that's the nostalgia, isn't it? That's just the nostalgia coming through. Like, how dare we have these characters in any other clothes than what we're used to? And loads of films do that as well, that kind of bring things back. You know, there's even kind of elements of that in Top Gun Maverick, of course. But so yeah, it was nice to see those characters come back. It did kind of feel like they were just all in it for the paycheck, which granted they probably were. You know, aging actors, and they're probably getting paid quite a nice, healthy sum of money for this film. And why not? You know, it's another paycheck. They look incredible, though. Like Sam Neill, especially, 74 years of age, and this man doesn't look a day over 50. Like, he is in fantastic shape. Like, he just, they really kind of fit those characters, you know, especially after 30 years. Well, not so much 30 years, because I know Sam Neill, well, Goldblum came back for Fallen Kingdom, didn't he? I think towards the end of the film, and I know he was in the second film, and Sam Neill and Laura Dern were last in the franchise at Jurassic Park 3. Which they do actually, that is in continuity. I was kind of interested to see how they handle that, whether they were going to completely ignore Jurassic Park 3. But they reference it, you know, Laura Dern kind of, you know, there's going to be this budding relationship between Sam Neill and Laura Dern's character in the film, because, you know, that's kind of been set up from the first one. Actually, that kind of made me really sad in Jurassic Park 3 that she'd kind of gone off with someone else, got married, had a kid. She apparently had another kid in the interim between Jurassic Park 3 and this film. And Sam Neill's very much been kind of like wrapped up in his work, and, you know, is kind of a loner and hasn't had a family and hasn't like got married or anything like that. And when, you know, spoiler alert for the end of the film, the two, you know, finally get together at the end, it made me smile. I was like, okay, I kind of like that. And that's kind of the problem. I'm so enamored with the original cast. and they absolutely act circles around all of the new cast, that I just kind of wish the film was on exclusively the old cast. And that's kind of the same again, like with the Star Wars sequel comparisons right there. It's kind of exactly the same with that, that like, I don't care about Rey or Finn or Poe or Rose or any of the new cast. You know, I want to see Han, I want to see Leia and Luke and Chewie and all that. You know, I want the old cast. So every time it kind of cuts away from them and it cuts back to, you know, Chris Pratt's and Bryce Dallas Howard's exploits, I'm just like, oh, I don't care. I just really don't care. That being said, as I mentioned, like the original cast, it does feel like at some points they're phoning it in a little bit, especially Goldblum, who's just kind of, you know, the guy is a meme right now, and he is doubling down on that Jeff Goldblum persona. I mean, that's kind of it for positives. We're probably going to get into we're going to have to get onto negatives now, because there's quite a lot of negatives with this film. What else didn't I like? Pretty much everything else in the film. So, but okay, let's talk the running time for this thing, because this film is about 2.5 hours long. It's the longest Jurassic Park / World film, and it's agonizingly long. I was getting restless at multiple points during this film, and there's no reason that this film needed to be as long as it was. And I did some reading before jumping on for this review, and apparently Colin Trevorrow said that there's about 15 minutes that's been cut from the film, and he'd love to do a director's cut of the film. I actually think there's a scene within the trailer, which is actually kind of the money shot of the trailer, really, that doesn't actually feature in the film, involving the T-Rex, which I was very surprised about. And I mean, if anyone's seen it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember seeing this scene in the film unless I kind of tuned out a second. But it's where it looks like a drive-in movie theater, and like the projector, and then the T-Rex comes out of the screen and starts chasing after the audience. That scene isn't in the film. So I'm wondering if that's part of the 15 minutes that got cut. But a 2-hour, 45-minute Jurassic World film? That is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculousness. And even at 2.5 hours, I think it's too long. I think you could easily try and shave like half hour off this film, or maybe just have it slightly over, but just kind of like a neat 2-hour action film. And the problem is with this film is that it's just so meandering. It feels like a film that's got about 2 or 3 plot lines all kind of like thrown together. It feels very, very unfocused as a film. Hey, we've got Mythic Dawn. I'm not talking to myself on the camera now. This is cool. Okay. Mythic Dawn, damn, they're really trying to milk every franchise. Shows how creatively bankrupt the film industry is nowadays. Absolutely, man. And I tell you what was really depressing about going to see this film today is that I'm still thinking about Top Gun Maverick. And if you haven't checked that film out, please go and check that out. It's a worthy sequel. It's a great film. It's a great blockbuster film, and it does right by its original cast, and you know, obviously introduces a new cast as well. You know, mostly practical effects in that film as well, and you know, it really comes across, and it's tense and it's engaging. And then straight after, like, I've seen this film, and this film's kind of reminded me of everything that I hate about sort of like modern, you know, overly CGI, fakey fake blockbuster action films. And they're all kind of just merging into one for me. In all honesty, like I was kind of tempted not to go and see this film like at all, and just, you know, because usually I know whether I'm going to like a film or not. And at this point, I hated Jurassic World. I hated Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom even more than that. Is this one worse than the first? This one might even be worse than Fallen Kingdom. Part of me thinks like maybe I need to go back and watch Fallen Kingdom, but I don't want to. I don't want to go back to that film. I don't want to like subject myself to that film again. But this is just really fucking bad, and it's kind of impossible to me. And I know some people might say, "Oh, well, you've got to move on, Chris. You got to move on with the times." But no, it's like media is media. Film is film. Like I was watching this film and constantly going, you know, comparing it to the original film in the franchise, thinking how far this franchise has fallen, how far we've come from that. Well, how far in a bad way we've come from that first film, and all the ingredients that made that first film work. You know, the great characters, the interplay between them, even like just the quieter moments in the film where it's just characters talking. One of my favorite scenes in the film is where, you've got Richard Attenborough at the table talking to Laura Dern. And I think it's when she's like eating the ice cream or the jelly or something, and they're just kind of talking about, they're just sitting down and talking. It's like the calm before the storm kind of thing. It's one of my favorite scenes in the film. And, you know, when it builds up to the dinosaurs, and there is like a genuine build up to that film, they feel epic. You know, it feels like an event when you see that T-Rex come out of the paddock, when you see the velociraptors in the kitchen. It's great set pieces. It's great tension. Then in this one, it's just like, just throw everything out there. And actually, let's talk about the effects in this as well, because that's another thing that's kind of like rubbed me up the wrong way with this. So on the one hand, as I said, there is kind of a bigger push, well, more of a push, I should say, towards the practical effects side than at least we've seen in Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom, and that's good stuff. But the actual CGI in this, especially the first few scenes, just looked really bad. And I don't know if it's a case of that there's too much CGI on the screen in terms of, you know, Chris Pratt's on a horse and he's, you know, clearly in front of a green screen, and the landscapes, you know, heavily effects heavy. And then the dinosaurs in frame are obviously CGI as well, so it just looks like a video game and it looks a lot more faker. But there's this part at the beginning of the film, and I think it's in the trailer as well, where Chris Pratt's character and a bunch of other people, like kind of ranchers, are chasing after some dinosaurs, and trying to lasso them and, you know, try and break them in. And these dinosaurs are acting like that, you know, like they're trying to break in like a wild Mustang or something like that. And the scene just looks really fake, and the effects don't look good on the dinosaurs. The textures don't look finished. They just look kind of glossy. And I was even looking at some of kind of like the run animations for the velociraptors, especially like Blue and the baby, where you see them like running through the forest, and I don't know, it didn't look good. It didn't look good. I mean, what do I know about visual effects, right? Like, I'm sure in the behind the scenes come out, it's going to look fantastic, but I'm just speaking from what I saw in the film. It really didn't look good, especially in those earlier few scenes of the film. And then you've got like the action scenes in the film that are completely ridiculously over the top, and there's just no tension. You know, I don't think anyone really gets cut or blooded in this film at any point. You know, like you think back to the original Jurassic Park, or even the second and the third one, like they're getting beat up, the clothes are getting torn, they're getting blooded up and bruised and everything, and it actually looks like they're in those situations. With this one, the action scenes are so elaborate and over the top and ridiculous. There's this whole scene where I'm trying to think where they are. I think they're in Italy, and you've got Bryce Dallas Howard who's like parkouring all over these rooftops as she's being chased by dinosaurs. And it's like a scene from Assassin's Creed. She's just making these like ridiculous jumps over rooftops. There's a really, I noticed this as well when she's running across the rooftops, and I think they're being chased by like genetically modified raptors. I think they called them the Atrociraptors, and I thought, that's terrible. I was like, I don't think that, I'm pretty sure that that's not a real dinosaur, the Atrociraptor. I was like, so you've literally just merged the words atrocity and raptor together. I was like, it's like unobtainium from Avatar. It was just embarrassing. Now someone's going to tell me that, oh no, Chris, actually the Atrociraptor was a real life dinosaur that existed in like the late Jurassic period or something like that. And if that's true, then let me know. But as she's running over the rooftops away from this raptor, there's like this really awkward, clipped in, zoomed in, like B-roll footage of her feet running on the rooftop in boots. And I'm like, clearly that's Trevorrow saying, fuck you, because I made her run in heels in the first film, and everyone like got up on their high horse about it. So, and yeah, this scene in Italy is just absolutely ridiculous. There's a new character in it as well. Let me just get the name of the actress real quick. So she's like a former Air Force pilot, and she just kind of gets them from A to B. She's just a pilot character. She's played by DeWanda Wise. And this character is just nothing. There is absolutely nothing about this character. No personality, nothing. I couldn't tell you anything about this character other than the fact that she's a pilot in the Air Force. And she's kind of, she was a part of the Air Force and the military, and now she's kind of off on her own means and kind of doing like dodgy deals and everything like that. Kind of, you know, for the right price, she'll, you know, ferry cargo. She's kind of like a smuggler, I guess, at this point now. And, you know, she's been living in that lifestyle for ages, and her entire character change and what changes her to the good side is that she just happens to glance across the runway they've basically kidnapped the little girl from Jurassic Park, Fallen Kingdom, the clone girl. This evil corporation wants her because they want to like test, do tests on her and experiments on her, and they basically kidnap her at the beginning of the film. And that's kind of what the plot of the whole film is. It's just Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard trying to rescue her, try and get her back. And also there's dinosaurs at some points during the film as well. That the plot for this film is ridiculous. Like it doesn't feel like it pays off on any of the setup from the previous film, and then it just kind of resorts to a kid's being kidnapped and we need to go and rescue the kid. But yeah, this pilot character is kind of like getting ready to take off and, go about a job. And she just happens to look across the runway and sees these group of people sort of like bundling this girl into the car. And then all of a sudden that makes her immediately turn to the good side. She's quite this dismissive character, and, she doesn't want to get involved. She's just like, I'm getting paid. Like, I'm not getting involved. But all of a sudden she just completely 180s, and she knows who they're going after. And she's best pals with Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard almost instantly. And it just felt like that was way too quick of a character change, like a character arc. Can you even call it an arc? I don't even think you can. Eventually, it leads to this really elaborate action scene where Chris Pratt's on a bike. Of course, he is being chased by raptors, and the green screen and stuff like that. You've got Bryce Dallas Howard who's in like the back of a truck. At that point, DeWanda Wise is driving a truck. So when Bryce Dallas Howard's doing like all the parkour shit, and she's like Assassin's Creed, like Ezio running across the rooftops, she's kind of dangling from a balcony, and she just so happens, like conveniently, that DeWanda Wise's character just happens to be down that exact same street with a truck ready to rescue her. I'm like, what are the odds in the entire fucking city? She just happens to be down this exactly the same street to rescue this character right now. And there's so many convenient moments like that in the film. It's like, we need the characters to be here together, so let's just throw them in this really convenient situation where they just happen to meet. There's another scene like that at the end of the film as well, which I'll talk about in just a second. But the green screen just looks really bad, and you can tell none of them are in that environment or reacting to anything, and it just looks absolutely terrible. And it just takes you out of the action scene. I was bored during this action scene, and so many modern blockbuster films, I'm just bored. I just tune out. Like when the action scenes start, like all your Marvel films and everything, I just tune out, because sometimes less is more with action scenes. And if you can shoot it in reality, then obviously you're going to have a more of a kinetic feel. But scenes like in the original Jurassic Park, and even some of the sequels as well, but the first Jurassic Park, like the kitchen scene, for example, so simple: two dinosaurs stalking two kids in a kitchen, and there's way more tension in that scene. Jurassic Park 2 with the trailer when it's dangling over the cliff, really good build up, really tension filled. This one is just like, just because we've got modern technology and we can do anything now, let's have Bryce Dallas Howard in the back of a truck, in like a fakey fake truck in front of a green screen, and we've got these three raptors sort of like bouncing off rooftops and jumping off trying to get her, and if you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. But it just looked really, really bad, and a lot of the action scenes are like that. Eventually it leads to a runway where DeWanda Wise's character gets in a plane and is starting to take off, and Chris Pratt's trying to chase after this plane on the tiny little moped, and how he's catching up with an accelerating plane, I have no idea. And it turns into a scene from Uncharted where he's as it's taking off, he ramps the bike into the back, and then the Velociraptor jumps into the back of the plane, and then the bike, everyone's sliding down like Inception, and this bike hits it's just, we don't need all of that. You don't need all of that at all. You can strip that back considerably and have a much more engaging action scene where you actually feel like the characters are in peril, and there's actual tension going on there. And that's kind of all the way throughout the film as well. There's loads of convenient moments. There's a scene where you've got the old cast and the girl in the car escaping from the compound, and they get off-roaded, and they roll the car down a hill. And when they reach the bottom of the hill, they just happen to bump into Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard, who's been looking for them the entire film. It's like, what are the odds that you roll down that particular hill, and at the bottom of that particular hill is the two people that you were looking to try and reconnect with and meet up? It's like, well, we need all of our cast of characters together for the big ending, don't we? It's like, yes, but you can write that in a non-contrived way and actually make it make sense to how they meet up together. But there's no logical writing in this. The screenplay for this film is actually really piss poor. Just some really terrible jokes, like awkward Marvel kind of humor in there. It just doesn't work. A lot of the times the characters just don't feel like the characters they were. Even simple things like Goldblum's working for this, facility, which for all intents and purposes, apart from the people going to the park, tourists, it's basically Jurassic Park. When Jeff Goldblum's character in that first film, and even I think kind of the second film as well, if it wasn't cemented by that point, is like, we can't play God. He's a chaotician, isn't he? He's a mathematician. Dinosaurs can't exist in this world with us because it just can't. Like, dinosaurs had their day. Not to mention he's had 2 encounters where he's almost been killed by dinosaurs, and now all of a sudden 30 years later he's working at a place which is basically doing exactly the same thing that Hammond did in the first film. Just seemed really out of character for me, and I don't think Goldblum would be doing anything with dinosaurs at this point, and he certainly wouldn't be endorsing a quite transparently evil company to do all the things that it's doing. Let's talk about the clone human character again. So the actress is Isabella Sermon. She played the little girl in Fallen Kingdom who was the clone, obviously reprising the role in this one again. She has some really bad line delivery, and I don't want to harp on her too much because I don't know how old she is or how much acting experience she's had before these 2 Jurassic World films, but she's pretty fucking bad, like the majority of the movie. And so much of the film centers on her character as well, so that's why she's kind of just constantly throughout the film. But that whole thing where, like, the clone human, she turned out to be a clone or something like that, so they kind of retcon that a little bit, because I don't think Trevorrow didn't direct Fallen Kingdom, did he? I'm pretty sure he didn't. I know he directed the first one, but I don't think he directed the second one. Let me just double check real quick. Yeah, it was J.A. Bayona, wasn't it, who did the second one? So I don't know if this was him coming back and saying, I didn't like that plot line, so I'm going to retcon it. I don't know. But this gets really, really dumb. And I've got to try and sort of like vocalize what's happened in the film, because maybe I missed a bit of information here, but the girl was under the impression that she was a clone human from a scientist called Charlotte Lockwood, I think was the name. But it turns out in this one that she wasn't actually... Was she a clone? I don't think she was a clone. I think she was the real life daughter of Charlotte Lockwood. Again, if I've missed something and she is actually a clone, let me know. But I'm pretty sure they kind of retcon that. Charlotte Lockwood was this scientist, and this is so convoluted. Like, literally, I can't even remember like what I'm trying to say about this. Charlotte Lockwood was a scientist who had an actual real life daughter that is the character of Maisie, the girl from the second film. And apparently when she was a baby, she had some kind of like really debilitating disease or something that would kill her or really impair her as a child. So Charlotte, as a scientist, came up with like something that she could inject in her baby that would latch itself to the DNA sequence, which would basically eradicate all illnesses, all diseases, and just give her like a clean bill of health, apparently. And this is the element that they want to try and extract from her so that they can then market this to the world, I think, and have some kind of like big monopoly on it. The story for this is so convoluted, it's ridiculous. The writing's abysmal. But then in the same breath, they also say that Charlotte had this really debilitating disease and died. So if Charlotte came up with this serum that could be injected into anyone or anything and eradicate all diseases, why wouldn't she use it on herself? Why wouldn't she get that mass produced? Why wouldn't she share that with people? Because as a scientist, like, that's kind of your duty. And it seems like very selfish of her that she's just like, I'm just going to use this on my baby and no one else, not even myself. What if she could produce the serum? I don't think, like, once you've created it, I don't think it would be finite. Like, I'm pretty sure you could just sort of mass produce that, or get a team together? Like, why couldn't she make some for herself and her baby? And also, why couldn't you already market this to the world? Like, why is this such a secret? Like, surely the files that Charlotte was working on, you could access, and you could sort of like pick up on where she left off, or find bits and pieces. Because you've got Dr. Henry Wu back in this one as well, and he really wants. They're basically stealing this child so that they can like take her blood and like experiment on her, so that they can get the serum that was in her blood that was injected by her mother, so that they can do something with it. I mean, the big villainous plot of this film is that there's a plague of locusts. That's kind of like your big villain of the film, is these sort of genetically modified locusts that are eating up all the food supply across the continent and across the world, which could lead to human extinction because they're going to eat all the food. And apparently it's this ploy by the evil corporation that they're creating their own genetically modified crops, which these locusts aren't eating because they want a monopoly on the food. It's just an evil, it's an evil corporation just doing evil things because that's it. Like, they're your villains of this film. Played by, the villain of this film is Dodgson, who is the guy who sits at the table and gives Wayne Knight the shaving foam canister with the DNA, with the blood samples in the first film. So apparently his character went on to become, well, the real life actor of the one who played him in the original film went on to be a real life villain, because I mean, I think I read this correctly, but I think he was done for like loads of sexual like pedophilia charges. I think I'm not sex offender something. I'm not sure. It's like horrible stuff. I think I read that. I'm pretty sure I read that from the actor who played the original Dodgson. So it's meant to be the same character, but obviously played by a different actor in this one, and he's just stereotypically evil. I honestly, like, I'm already forgetting this film. It's just really bad. It's overly long. The writing's terrible. I've talked about the action scenes and stuff. There's a cool bit of dino action towards the end where I mentioned where the T-Rex teams up with the Therizinosaur to take out the Gigantosaurus. And Therizinosaur's got these really long front forearms with massive sharp claws on the end, and the T-Rex kind of shoves the Gigantosaurus into these spikes, which impales it. I was like, that's kind of cool. I was like, okay, you got me with that. That was a cool, creative way to dispatch the main villain. I mentioned at the beginning of the review that there was a scene that actually made me laugh out loud from just how bad the acting was. And the whole setup for this scene is crap. And it goes back to what I was saying about the action scenes in this film. There's just no tension or repercussions for anything. So when they touch down, they crash land, sorry, you've got DeWanda Wise's character and Chris Pratt, and they crash land, in the snow, in the ice at the compound where they are. And they're walking across this frozen lake, and that they're walking very carefully, obviously. And then this dinosaur shows up, like this raptor. I actually do appreciate that they've got some feathered dinosaurs in there, because science and the study of dinosaurs has come a long way since the first Jurassic Park film, and we know a lot more about dinosaurs now. We know that a number of them, including velociraptors and stuff, were actually feathered. And they do introduce some feathered dinosaurs into this one, which I do appreciate. So this thing starts like bowling across the ice after them, and they're running away. And Chris Pratt breaks through the ice and is in the water. And this dinosaur can swim as well. So this raptor jumps under the water and is swimming after him. And, he gets out of the ice and he's absolutely fine. He's just been in ice water, hypothermia, what? Pneumonia, what? Like, he's just fine. He's talking fine, he's acting fine, he's running around fine. Like, there's no repercussions to anything. Again, going back to the first Jurassic Park film, when you've got the little kid who's on the electric fence, like, the kids are like getting beat up and getting worn down and stuff, but you're seeing that there's those downtime moments where they are actually having a real hard time of this. You've got the bit where Ellie's told to like run across the velociraptor paddock and get to that thing where they've got to like hit all the switches and everything, and like she is sprinting, like she looks terrified, and that's really, really cool stuff. In this one, it's just, they're all going to be fine because there's no repercussions. They're just there on a green screen, they're there on a sound stage, and it just makes action scenes in films. It's not just Jurassic World Dominion, it's pretty much all modern day blockbuster action films. Like the grand majority of them just have no heart or soul to it, or any kind of grit or realism to it. So he's fine after being submerged in ice cold water for ages. He gets out of the ice as well very easily. If you've seen anything, like if you've seen Bear Grylls and shit like that, you know how fucking difficult it is to get out of like ice water, like a frozen lake, and you've got to kind of drag yourself out. Not to mention as well, this dinosaur, and this kind of reminded me at the end of the Hobbit film, Battle of the Five Armies, where you've got Thorin Oakenshield fighting Azog on the ice, and physics just don't exist. This dinosaur just springboards itself out of the water, like gets airtime, breaks through the ice, airtime, and then like lands back on the ice. How did it do that? Like, how can it propel itself through ice like that? Like, especially a dinosaur of that weight. And it's not a water dinosaur, it's not like a whale that can sort of do that and like power itself out of the water, or like a shark or something. This is a bipedal dinosaur. How can it gain that kind of momentum? Because there isn't like a lake bed or a river bed or something that it can like springboard itself off. Oh, but it looks cool, And the laughable bit of acting is right after this. So Chris Pratt's running with DeWanda Wise's character, and they run into like this kind of metal elevator, and she lets out this scream that's just so laughably bad. It's really bad. I can't. It feels like I'm watching some kind of spoof movie. It feels like I'm watching Scary Movie. People, like, if you go and see this film and then somehow you stumble across this review and you've almost made it, 52 minutes in. Seriously, like, she lets out this scream, like, ah, like, it's so bad. It's so fucking bad, and you know that. She was reacting to nothing as an actress, and it's just, I don't know if it was the direction. I actually didn't think she was well acted in this film at all. I didn't particularly like her character at all, really. She's just really boring. She's just a really one-note character. Of course, they throw a line in there, like a quick blink and you'll miss it line in there, which ticks a box for inclusion and everything like that. And, of course, probably when they market this film to China, it's such a blink and you'll miss it line that they're going to easily cut that out for, Chinese box office. It's where Chris Pratt's talking about Bryce Dallas Howard, and then really randomly in the conversation, which just seems really out of place, DeWanda Wise just goes like, oh yeah, I got a thing for redheads too. And it's like, oh, she's lesbian, woo, tick that box. And they're just going to cut that line out when they take it to China. It's like, we're being inclusive if we throw like a really, really quick 1 second line in there, but it's going to be so quick and it's going to be easily editable for when we market it elsewhere. Like, it's a bunch of shit. It's just, so I kind of rolled my eyes at that, like, oh, of course. Let's see, what else can I talk about this film? I don't even know. There's just no tension. It was just an absolute waste of 2.5 hours, in all honesty. And I knew it was going to be bad, and I knew I was going to hate it. And I tried not to. Like, I thought, you know what? I know that this isn't going to be as good as the original Jurassic Park film. Nothing else ever will be. But at least I hope it's the best of the three of the Jurassic World films. And honestly, coming out of this, it might be the worst. It might just be the worst. And it's kind of gone the way of many franchises now, where I'm just like, it's dead, put it to bed. I don't think Jurassic Park was ever meant to be a franchise. Some films work as a one-off, some films just don't work as a franchise. And it's gone the way of, like Terminator, Alien. What else have we got? The new Predator. It's just like, stop. Can we just stop? It's not working. It's like, it's a relationship. It's like, let's address this. It's not working. We need to go our separate ways. We need to put it to bed, Actually, the last thing that I'll mention really quickly, Michael Giacchino did the score for this, and I know he's done the score to the previous two Jurassic World films. Fantastic composer, probably one of the best modern day composers there is with film. Not once in this film is the Jurassic Park, the John Williams Jurassic Park main theme played in full statement. It kind of drifts in and out of the score very subtly, but there's never a full statement where you just have that brass kicking, like bum, 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 bum. It doesn't play it at all in the film. There's like subtle moments where it sort of like weaves in and out, but you never get a full statement of it. And I'm like, what the fuck are you? The epic conclusion to the Jurassic era, to the Jurassic saga, and you don't play the main theme at like a notable point in the film. That rubbed me up the wrong way. Like the soundtrack to this is just really fucking forgettable. It's just not a particularly good soundtrack really at all. There's no sort of like defining bit of music in there. So to summarize, I mean, I suppose in some part, the CGI actually towards the end looked pretty good. With the you know, like the big slanging match between the dinosaurs, maybe because it's nighttime and you can mask a lot of CGI when it's at nighttime, so maybe that's why the effects looked really good at the end. There's a few bare minimum moments of tension that I think worked really for me, and it was the Therizinosaur, and I think you see it in the trailer as well, where it's kind of stalking after Bryce Dallas Howard, and she has to kind of submerge herself under some water, and it's kind of like snarling right above the water, and she's got to hold her breath for a certain amount of time. That was probably the best moment of tension, and the part to me that felt like an actual Jurassic Park film. But it's filled with unlikable characters, a lot of bad acting, a hell of a lot of bad script writing, and it just ends on a real whimper of the franchise. It's just, you know, put it to bed. Land that comet, just, you know, please for the love of God make these dinosaurs go extinct. And, you know, they say it's the epic conclusion, but it's the conclusion of this trilogy. They've made it sound like it's the conclusion of the whole franchise though, and I really hope it does, but it's going to depend on how much money this film makes and, you know, word of mouth and everything, so we'll see how it does. But I think it's going to have a big opening weekend. I think it will dip, you know, a little bit in the second one, but then I think it's probably dropping off after that. We've got some other films coming out as well, obviously, across the next couple of weeks. We've got the Elvis Presley film, which actually, as more trailers have come out for, I've kind of gravitated towards that a lot more. I'm actually really looking forward to it. I got a trailer for it before the film today, and it basically kind of showed like an entire scene from the film. So I kind of got more of a sense of the style and the what they're kind of going for with it. And I've come around to it a lot more, actually. But this film, yeah, I'm already forgetting it. I kind of wish I didn't go and see it. It was a waste of time. Yeah, Jurassic World Dominion. There we go. Go and see Top Gun Maverick. That's my closing thoughts on this. Just go and see Top Gun Maverick. It's the best thing in the cinema at the moment. It's a sequel to a property. You know, it's a 30-year on sequel that does so much justice to its original characters, introduces a new cast that are actually likable and fit into the world very well. There's a lot of nostalgia in it, but it works. Whereas this one, you know, there is loads of nostalgia bits in this film. You've got the Dilophosaurus back in there randomly, because why not? You know, they're trying so desperately hard to capture some of those moments from the original Jurassic Park film with the original cast, and it's just not working. It's just a completely different landscape now for films, isn't it? Unfortunately, and it just doesn't have, films just don't have that same level of realism or grit to them, or good likable characters and genuinely well written characters and script writing and banter between characters and memorable lines and whatnot. And there's loads of visual signifiers in this film where it's trying to, you know, replicate characters from the original moments. The whole ending of this film is, you know, you've got Bryce Dallas Howard teaming up with Laura Dern, and they've got to press buttons. They've got to redirect power from the mainframe to somewhere else. I'm like, okay, we're doing exactly the same thing as the original. You've got Jeff Goldblum, who's sat on his own because he's the quirky weirdo who no one wants to team up with, and he's reading the instructions over a walkie-talkie, just like how John Hammond and Goldblum were in the original film. And then you've got Chris Pratt and Sam Neill going off and doing like all of the dangerous shooty stuff. You know, it's just exactly the just rinse repeat, no creativity. It's exactly what Mythic Dawn wrote earlier. where he said just creatively bankrupt the film industry is. You know, go and see Top Gun Maverick. Best thing in the cinema at the moment. It's a good blockbuster. It's getting repeat viewings. I think it's made 600 mil so far. Yeah, and I hope it continues to skyrocket because that film absolutely deserves it. That is my review on Jurassic World Dominion, and I hope for the love of Christ that's the last Jurassic Park film / Jurassic World film that I ever need to talk about on the channel. Unless I go back and talk about some of the original ones, I don't know, but it's just time to put this franchise to bed. Do subscribe to the channel, though, for more movie reviews, discussions, and live streams. As I just mentioned, I will be reviewing Elvis Presley in a few weeks' time. I think that's the 24th of June, isn't it? I think it is, but I'll be reviewing it. It actually looks really good. I'm a massive Elvis fan as well, so I'm really hoping that film's good. And we've got a lot of other stuff coming out as well. In the TV realm of things as well, obviously Stranger Things Season 4, Part 1 is already out and has been out for a while. I'm going to be watching that over the course of this week, so do expect a review for that at a certain point. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff happening, so do subscribe to the channel, and obviously follow me on Twitter as well. You can find me at Hobbit Fan Editor. There I post all the times that I'm going to go live, and just so you guys are clued up with what's going to be coming on the channel. And I'll probably chat about some other random stuff as well. So I do like to engage with you guys as well, so please do follow me on there as well, and let's start talking movies and TV. If you're a James Bond fan, I'm going to be live once again on Tuesday next week. I'm going to be going live for my review on The Man with the Golden Gun. That's going to be Tuesday, the 14th of June at 11 p.m. British Standard Time. If you're a James Bond fan, subscribe to the channel. It's the place to be. Week to week, I'm reviewing all of the James Bond films because they're putting them all in in my local cinema, and I'm loving it. And it's great to go through them week to week. So hopefully, Man with a Golden Gun is entertaining enough for me and can wash away the taste of Jurassic World Dominion, hopefully. But yeah, that'll do it for me. Thanks to everyone who tuned in and commented along as well, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Take care, everyone.